It seems as if every project that I have watched over the last few years has either had a female prominently in the main role, a cast of females as the main characters, a female director who does not know when to stop talking, or a cast with one male surrounded by female characters whose only purpose is to show how much better they are than him. It's the old bait and switch routine, and I am more than a little sick of it. Everywhere I look, the guys are disappearing in favor of pushy, overly aggressive, abrasive, narcissistic girl bosses whose only goal is domination and humiliation. Most movies and television shows these days are filled with actresses who have a chip on their shoulder and would like to make the audience think that they are the underdogs, when in truth, they are some of the most privileged human beings on earth. It's a delusional narcissism that has utterly poisoned mainstream movies, and like a limb that has been infested with disease, it needs to be cut out before it's too late and the whole body cannot be saved. And oftentimes, behind every female girl boss character with a chip on her shoulder the size of Mount Everest, there is usually an actress with a feminist agenda that the rest of us just would rather not hear about. Whether it's actresses in fantasy, in science fiction, in superhero-themed movies, in contemporary projects, we are being bombarded by people and interviews that don't really have any personality of their own and are simply there to spout feminist talking points because for some reason they think that that is what will win them brownie points with the fans. They don't even seem like real people because there is a bitterness to them that makes them unlikable and in many cases unwatchable. There have been a plethora of interviews over the years with female actors and directors who have revealed their feminist agenda to Hollywood and the world at large, and as a result have been largely ignored or mocked. And I want to talk about a few today because for as bad as the characters are, the actresses are in many ways worse because they are real people. Let's start with Elizabeth Banks. A former model, she is now an actress and filmmaker known for her roles as Effie Trinket in The Hunger Games, as well as having a minor role in the Pitch Perfect movies. Along with films like Surrender Dorothy and Wet Hot American Summer, she's been around the industry for a while. But I had never really heard much about her ideologies or political leanings until the release of her action comedy, if you can call it that, Charlie's Angels. Though she was the director of the film, she also played a major role in it as Bosley, one of the upper boss babes of the Townsend Agency. It wasn't until a series of interviews were released that showcased Banks all but demanding that men go see her movie that I began to take a closer look at her. And it seems as if Elizabeth Banks bases her arguments about feminism and the necessity of this groundbreaking Charlie's Angels film on, well, I supported you, now you can support me. Newsflash, Liz, that's not how it works. Oftentimes, people don't go to see movies just because there is a female lead or an all-female cast. Using that as a reason to advocate for the excellence of a film really just suggests that you have no idea what you're talking about. As much as Hollywood and its affiliates and subsidiaries might want you to believe that everyone should see every diversity project no matter what, interests still exist. And despite what the higher-ups might claim, men have historically been more interested in action movies, science fiction, fantasy, and superhero films than they have comedy and romance. Sure, there have been some exceptions, but to try and take a genre that has been historically male-favored and shoehorn as much feminism as possible into it is not going to do a thing for their profit margins. In fact, it'll just make things worse. And then to claim after such a method fails that men let down women-led movies after being told that those same movies are not for men, well, it's tantamount to a toddler throwing a tantrum because the toy they didn't want to play with is now being used by someone else. And I don't think Elizabeth Banks understands that, or how the male mind works whatsoever with these claims. It kind of makes sense why she still remains on the fringes of fame, because if she is only making and being part of the content that no one is interested in seeing, well, she shouldn't be surprised when everyone takes her advice and washes their hands of her movies. As for this actress, well, I'm fairly certain that she doesn't exist in the real world whatsoever. It's been a year and a half since the dumpster fire that was Rings of Power aired on Netflix, and to this day, I wonder how many social media careers that show has launched. I certainly had a good time hating on it, and still indulge in a bit of that to this day. But despite the bad acting, the cringy dialogue, the gross bastardization of Tolkien's works, and the utter nothingness of the show itself, there were a few actors and actresses who put it together. Specifically, Sophia Namit, an actress who few in the mainstream had ever heard of before, but she made sure that everyone would know exactly who she was after. Sophia ensured to tell the watching audience just how groundbreaking it was having a black female dwarf present in a world that had been historically dominated by white males. I'm not going to talk about her lack of understanding about Tolkien's world or how The Lord of the Rings and its surrounding stories are a fictionalized history of England. I've done enough of that, and I have all of the upcoming of season 2 to discuss that as well. What I do want to talk about is her obsession with being the first. If you listen to any of her interviews, it's astonishing just how much stock she puts into this made-up character, claiming how utterly groundbreaking it is and how it's a new mark in the history books of progressivism for her to be the first black female dwarf in a community theater version of Tolkien's works. I wonder if she actually thought about anything she said in her interviews before it came out, or if she actually believes that her made-up character matters this much. I will be the first to say that I didn't mind Disa as a character. I thought she was sweet and kind, and there wasn't much to dislike about her. Even now, Sophia isn't an unlikable person. She's just out of touch, like most of Hollywood actresses who get a break and suddenly think they're all that. She obviously had a hard time making it big before, and suddenly she's being cast in the most expensive show ever made by a large streaming network, and she needs to say her piece and make sure that people remember her when everything is said and done. Congratulations, my dear. You did just that. But I'm willing to guess it's not for the reason that you think. One of the things that I dislike about these modern feminist actresses is that they act like they are the first to do everything. That a movie is groundbreaking because it is an all-female cast, because they included a person of color in a role, and act as if people of color have never had any role in a movie ever. It's this collective, almost hive amnesia that makes this feminist infestation so irritating. Movies where these sorts of characters are in a groundbreaking role are a dime a dozen these days, and no amount of pandering, no amount of cajoling or foot stamping is going to erase that fact. And the third reason why these activist actresses need to either stop talking or else go away entirely is the narcissism. I can't pinpoint one specific actress who has declared themselves to be the spokesperson for the modern audience, but there are many, and they are all annoying. Whether it's saying things that can easily be taken out of context, only to walk them back with half-hearted apologies later, delusions of grandeur about just what they are adding to the project they are starring in, or spouting off facts that are simply untrue about women and equality in Hollywood. All of it comes with an attempt to place a spotlight on themselves, their accomplishments, their expectations, their perception of reality, and just how it impacts them as human beings, all while expecting the rest of us to believe them. One such example I have is Jennifer Lawrence. In an interview, she decided to share her thoughts about action heroes and movies and the roles women have played in them. This is, of course, followed up by her assertions that she was a trailblazer for the genre, because before she came along, there had never been any action heroines. Be right back. I need to go give a sincere apology to Sarah Connor and Ellen Ripley. Imagine the sheer hubris it takes to sit there and claim with utter surety something that is absolutely untrue. Imagine being so ignorant of the past that you blind yourself to reality in such a hilarious way. But I genuinely think that Jennifer Lawrence doesn't watch any other films than her own. Her life experience is probably so small that she simply might not be aware that other action movies with female stars have existed decades before she ever entered Hollywood. It's the combination of narcissism and ignorance that blows my mind. Another example of this extreme narcissism mixed with delusion is a person that we have all grown very familiar with over the course of the last year. Rachel Zegler, though she has been in very poorly received and profited films throughout her short career, seems to believe that because she simply exists, it is a cause for her to gain more money, more fame, and more notoriety than her peers. As a result of her narcissism and the inability to cease digging a hole for herself, the Snow White film has been delayed, and something of an apology tour has begun. Is it genuine? Well, that's really dependent upon the actress who is giving the apologies. In my humble opinion, I don't think so, and it is likely that this is a studio-mandated situation. Disney desperately trying to salvage the wreckage of Snow White after Rachel Zegler took a chainsaw to it. As it stands, this movie looks as if it will turn in the same poor performance that every other Rachel Zegler project has given, and I can't say that I'm surprised. Finally, but perhaps most insidiously, the feminization of Hollywood has many of the activist actresses hating on the fans for reasons that are either as thin as a coffee filter or else unproved at all. From Moses Ingram's claims about the racist comments she received while starring in Obi-Wan Kenobi, or Tatiana Maslany cackling about how they made She-Hulk to troll fans, to Olivia Wilde's campaign to smear men she deemed toxic with "Don't Worry, Darling," these feminists have decided to take the power that they have and use it to bully and harass people they don't agree with. And that's perhaps the most insidious part about all of this. To have so much power that you can use it to degrade and drive off your main source of income really lends credence to the belief that all forms of entertainment are dying. People have become vindictive and selfish, seeking out ways to hurt instead of cultivating ways to create. Feminism in Hollywood is by no means the only culprit, but it's certainly the most public one. Watching people brag about their self-importance and lie about the history of cinema is both hilarious and a little nauseating. We've reached a period where very few good things are being written and produced anymore, and Hollywood is simply another cesspool of self-important, self-aggrandizing activism. Mark Twain once said that it is better to keep your mouth closed and let people think you're a fool than open it and remove all doubt. With that in mind, it's become pretty obvious why Hollywood is failing. Thanks so much for watching this video, guys. Be sure to leave me your thoughts down in the comment section and let the conversations begin. Until next time, everyone.